Good morning, everybody. MG here. MG Covers, bringing you a brand new sports handicapping video. Title of this video is Recency Bias Applied to Stat Models. Super fascinating video. Think you're going to learn a lot. Going to share something very different than what you normally see in a lot of my videos, but very educational. Before we do that, as always, if you're watching this video for the first time, subscribe to the channel. Greatly appreciate everyone that supports this channel, subscribes, watches. So if you're a long-time looker and have not subscribed, appreciate you subscribing. If you want to follow me on Instagram and Twitter, it's MG Covers, Covers spelled with a Z. Give out a ton of content there on my storyline as well. Posted a lean for the Washington Wizards last night, and they actually did win, so you get a lot of value simply by following me on Instagram. All right, so let's dive into this video. And first, what I want to do, you're looking at the current lines for my soccer model for today, which is January the 31st, 2023. And what we're going to talk about is recency bias as it applies to stat models. And I first want to identify what recency bias is in handicapping in general. So I'm going to give you a really good example here. So this is the Super Bowl line for Kansas City and Philadelphia. And as you know, prior to this, in the NFC and AFC Championship, KC, I wouldn't say struggled against Cincinnati, but it was a really close game. Had to win by a field goal. Basically kicked a field goal there at the end to win it. Philadelphia, as we know, blew out San Francisco. So as far as the public goes and how they react, so what recency bias is means that people are going to overreact to Philadelphia blowing out San Francisco because that was the most recent thing that happened. And they'll, quote, underreact to Kansas City squeezing by Cincinnati, and you can see that in the line. So we scroll on here to 2 days ago when this line came out, it was basically opened at 2. You can't see it on the screen, and then immediately jumps to 2.5. So that's what we mean by recency bias. The public, sports bettors overreacting to that most recent event. And now look what's happened here recently. Now it's come all the way back down to -1. So that's recency bias in a nutshell. And you see this a lot in sports, and you can learn from this and take advantage of it. If a really good team, struggles one night or is on a 2-game losing skid, a 3-game losing skid, sometimes the general public might overreact to that and think they're going to continue to lose. And at some point, they're going to regress back to who they are. If they're a really good team, they're going to start playing well again. So I don't know if that's a great example, but hopefully you understand what I mean by recency bias. So in this video, what I want to talk about is recency bias as it applies to building models, what that means, and how you can learn from this. Now we're going to come back to this. We're going to handicap some games here a little bit later in this video, but what we want to look at first off, this is the totals tracker for my model. Now, as you know, this is a brand new model. When I say brand new, I basically built this right just prior to the World Cup and was successful, profitable during the World Cup. So this is the totals model. Now, if you see here, it's gone 6.5 wins. And the reason I use a half is on these 2.25 totals lines, you can wager a full unit. And if it goes on the under, and like here it did, they basically scored 2. So we would push on the 2, we'd win on the 2.5. So I just record that as a 0.5, which is the correct way to do it. So it's basically 60% up 2.1 units. Now, that is not sufficient enough evidence or sample size to 100% say, hey, this is a successful model. So an example of recency bias you would look at this and go, wow, we're 60% up 2.1 units. This is going to work. Well, we don't know. We don't have sufficient data. And let me give you another example of this. This is really fascinating here. Okay, so one thing I noticed with this model was that, let me go back over here. So my whole goal in all of this, and you guys have followed the channel for a while, what I'm trying to do is create as many plug-and-play models as I can where there's no handicapping involved. And what I mean by plug-and-play model, just show you this. This is my college basketball model, and we tracked this right before December. So the college basketball model is this, the way that I teach it and have clients, a lot of clients playing it this way, is that we look for teams that are even or favorite via my line, but getting at least 10 points sportsbook line. So that's what I call a plug and play model. And this is 43 and 32. That's 57%. So this has been very successful. That's a really good sample size. So that's an example of a plug and play model, which means we're going to disregard line movement, disregard form, et cetera, et cetera. So we're just focused on that criteria, making sure that the team we're playing is at least even or favorite via my line and getting plus 10 points at the sportsbook line. So that's basically what a plug and play model is. So what I'm trying to do is create as many plug and play models as I can. Now with soccer, what I noticed was teams that were plus 10 goal differential, we don't have any in this on this card, but teams that were plus 10 goal differential were winning at a high percentage. So I said, okay, I need to track this. And if you look over here at this tracker, so that's what I started doing. I started tracking these. And look, it started at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Won the first 5 matches. And so if a team was a heavy favorite, I was tracking them, playing them on the puck line in hockey, and then basically the spread line for soccer. Lost 3 here and then won these next 3. So you can see here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it goes 8 and 3 right here, right? 8 and 3 in this little run. So that's a really solid run, right? And the amount of profit it generated, let's scroll down here. That was up, just this right here, up 9.94 units. So that's really good. But again, so an example of recency bias as applied to sports betting models would be you would overreact to this and say, hey, this is the way to play soccer, play double-digit goal diff favorites via my model. It's going to work. Well, we don't know that because it's not sufficient data. So just keep that in mind. So this went 8 and 3, was up 9.94 units. Now I want you to scroll down here to the bottom. So after 30-day sample size, look at what it ended up. It ended up 12 and 16. Now still profitable, but just not enough profit to wager like this. So it was 12 and 16 and was up 0.85 units. It did hit some. The reason it had positive units, even though it had a losing record, we hit some pretty big dogs up here. But the point is, you can see how much this model regressed. And that's why if you're building a model, and I've said this before, a significant sample size, I mean, generally you can know whether or not to proceed moving forward after probably 25 games, but a significant sample to really test it, you need probably about 50 games in my opinion. Now, this is just based on me building models over the years. Some people might agree or disagree with that, but my point is you wouldn't need to back test 200 games or 200 matches in soccer to know if a model is going to be good or not. Once you get to be about 50 games, 50 matches, it's pretty much you'll have a really solid idea. And I really like to say after about 2025, you'll know whether or not to proceed even further. So after 25 matches or 25 games, if it's up 5 or 6 units, well, then you can continue testing it. Or after say 20, 25 games, it's down maybe 6 units. It's probably not going to get better adding another 25 games. So you might want to readjust and take a different approach with the model. But the point is you don't want to overreact to recent success that you've had with the model because on a small sample size. So that's really important. Now, what's also interesting about sample size, and I'll show you this with regards to the draws. Now, what I didn't realize, let's go over here to the draws. If you'd have played draws in all these matches, you'd be up 17.06 units, which is crazy. So now if you're watching this, you say, well, hey, well, maybe you should play draws. Again, more than likely, this is not a big enough sample size. And if we did this, we would be overreacting. We would be applying recency bias because it's up 17 units after 28 matches. And what we do know, so there were 28 matches, and there were 12 that drew. So if you take, let's see here, 12 divided by 28. Okay, so let me type this into percentage. So the draws hit 43%. So if we'd have just played draws for all of those double-digit favorites, be up 17 units, and that's hitting 43%. Now, the reason we can't overreact to this is because we have to apply some basic statistics and probability about soccer. In soccer, there's 3 lines, right? You have the home, the draw, and the away side. So statistically speaking, anytime you make a soccer wager, you only have, statistically speaking, a 33% chance of that cashing. So if we look at this, and this is a good point about recency bias, because you wouldn't want to overreact. Again, you have to look at it from the macro. You can't just say, okay, wow, we're up 17 units. We've had 28 plays. Let's just roll out and play draws from here on out. This hit 43%. Now, what did I just tell you? That statistically speaking, you only have a 33% chance. So in the next month, if we averaged in next month, do you think it's going to be higher or lower than 43%? It's going to regress lower, because 33% is the number for draws, right? Statistically speaking, we hit 43%. So more than likely, it's not going to continue at 43%. And another example, we've talked about this before, understanding stats and probability. If you're on a win streak, say you're going 11-3 and in the last 14 games, where you're not going to go 11-3 in the next 14, right? It's going to regress. It's the same deal if you're in a losing skid, and let's say you've gone 4-15. Well, you're not going to go 4-15 in the next 19 matches. Virtually statistically impossible. So very important to understand recency bias and not overreact to it like people will tend to do in sports handicapping, and understanding how models work, and that you're going to have a significant sample size. And so when I look at this, whoops, the wrong thing here. Let me go back to, all right, I just lost it. Okay, so when I go back to this, so you might ask the question, well, which direction, like what do you do from here on out? I don't know, because I want to believe that playing draws would be the way to go for soccer moving forward, just because it's relatively easy. Meaning it would be a plug and play model. But again, if we started wagering, say, full units in soccer on the draws, I mean, this is liable to regress, and maybe it hits even less than 33%. Meaning, if the average is 33% and we've hit 43%, maybe the next month it's liable to hit maybe 20%. I mean, that would be very normal if you understand stats and probability. So, very excellent point to be made about recency bias. So if you're building a model and you're profitable through say like 20 games, 20 matches, and you're back testing it, you can't get too excited, and you have to be wary and concerned about recency bias and realize that that's just too small of a sample size to move forward. And as far as this video goes, I thought I was going to do preview here, but I don't want to bog this video down because it's not really related to it. But a couple of leans here for today. You can look at this away team here for Turkey, getting minus 250. They're about minus 112 at the books. Other team they're playing is pretty good. At home, they're minus 106. This is my line, of course. And then you have Luton up here. They're minus 156. They're at home, going up against Cardiff. I think that line's maybe around plus 102. Not 100% sure on those plays. Would want to see a significant amount of line movement to our advantage. They are 7-point goal differential, and this away side here is an 8. And again, this particular match here would qualify as an overplay via my model. However, the line is 3.5. So if I play a totals line, I want that totals line to be right at 2.5, and it gives us an edge to either play the under or the over. So anyway, hopefully this video helped you understand a little bit about recency bias as it applies to sports handicapping. If you want access to this model every single day, all my plays, all my lines for NBA, college basketball, soccer, it's $49.95 per month. And if you want access to all my, in addition to what I just mentioned, and my plays, that's $100 a month. You can join for the year, $4.99 for the entire year. And there's a link to join in the description box. Good luck. Talk to you guys soon. Peace.